Okay guys, so in today's video I'm going to give you 5 tips to bear in mind when it comes to choosing what song to play next during your DJ sets, okay? This is something you're going to encounter on a regular basis when you're performing live and you're doing long sets. There's going to come a point where you're just kind of scratching your head. So I'm going to give you 5 tips to bear in mind. And I'm also going to aim these tips more at what to do if you're struggling to get people dancing. Because, and this is tip number 1 by the way, if people are dancing and they're loving the music you're playing, all you really have to do in those moments is continue playing that music. Now that's an obvious one, so I've kind of thrown it in there as a kind of bit of a naff point number 1, but that is the first thing to mention. Now a lot of these points moving forward are going to be what to do if you're struggling to get people dancing. So let's move on to point number 2. Okay, so point number 2 is probably one of my favorite tips, and that is this. I want you to visualize a scale right now. And at one end, no one is dancing, and at the other end, everybody's dancing, okay? So down here, no one's dancing, everyone's dancing up here. The general rule you need to follow is this. If less people are dancing, you play more popular mainstream music. If more people are dancing, you can now start to introduce some of the music you might like as a DJ. Music that they may never have heard of. Maybe some slightly heavier stuff, whatever genre that is that you're DJing in. This is a really, really freaking awesome tip, and it works across the board, whether you're doing weddings, whether you're doing clubs, in any genre. If less people are dancing, play the more popular stuff. If more people are dancing, you can now begin to introduce your own stuff as a DJ, okay? Super awesome tip. Let's move on to tip 3. Okay guys, so tip number 3 is probably one of my favorite tips, which I tend to follow, which is if you can get the women dancing, the men will follow. It doesn't necessarily work the other way around, by the way. If you get the men dancing, quite often the women actually won't follow. So it's always a good tip if you want to get everybody going is to get the women going first. And this will apply in so many different scenarios. So for example, if I was playing at a wedding, I would always aim to get the mums dancing first, right? Because you can get the mums on the dance floor, you play a bit of Motown, that kind of stuff. You get them dancing, then the daughters and the girls follow. Once the girls are up, then the men get up. Congratulations, you've got everybody up by playing a bit of Rod Stewart. Weird, but it works. That's the kind of stuff that actually works, right? However, this also works in a club as well. If you can play music that you know that's really hot with the girls right now and is going to want to get them up dancing, then you can get the guys up after that as well. It works in every single scenario, this. Honestly, it really does. So it's a really awesome tip to bear in mind. Keep your eye on the girls, play the music they like, and you will get everybody up on the dance floor. So that's tip number 3. Okay guys, so I'm aware so far in this video I haven't given you any kind of technical guidance of like, okay, you're staring at your screen, what do you do, okay? And it's difficult to do that because there's so many different genres of music and so many different types of DJs are going to be watching this video. But this is an example of when you could be more technical, and that is by looking at the BPMs, okay? So first and foremost, look at your audience. Where is their energy level at? Do they look like they've got energy to burn? Do they look like they're getting into it? Or do they currently look like they're exhausted and they need a bit of a break? Well, energy levels, I would say 9 times out of 10 would come down to the BPM of the track, actually. The higher energy tracks typically, most of the time, come down to BPM. So, depending on where people are at, you can start looking at higher BPM songs if they look like they've got energy to burn and they're ramping up energy, or if they look like they're kind of starting to tire out a bit, you could start introduce some slower BPM songs as well. Now again, you're going to have different folders, right, with different types of music in there. So this is one thing you can do, that when you're standing there, you look at the crowd and you just sort by BPM, and you can look down your list, and that'll be a really good guidance point for you as a DJ. And actually, I'm just going to throw this one in there as well, even though it wasn't one of the notes I wrote down, is this. I think it's a really good idea to start categorizing your music really well in terms of the type of people who are going to be dancing. Don't just do it in terms of like different genres of music. You know, if you're a wedding DJ, you can have music for people who are 40 to 50, or, over 60, or, people in their 20s, or popular music, or popular hip hop music, right? And you can start sorting your music into like more popular and like slightly less popular, more kind of underground music, okay? And it goes back to my point number 2 that as well, right? Which is less people dancing, more popular. More people dancing, you can start to go into less popular music. So there you go. That's point number 4. Point number 5 is one of my favorite tips, which is using throwback music. This is awesome because no matter what music you are currently playing, you put on a really good throwback song and it's going to get everybody going, and it doesn't even matter what BPM it is. You can bring the whole DJ set to a close and then put a really popular throwback song on and everyone will go crazy. Some of my favorite DJs do this, like and just thinking about like events I've been to, you're all dancing to a certain song and suddenly they put on a banger that you remember dancing to when you went to university, and it's like best night ever, okay? Now, how do you do this as a DJ? Because a throwback will mean different things to different people. Like throwback to me would be, going back to my university days, but throwback to my mum wouldn't be music I listened to in university. So essentially the general rule of thumb is this: go back 5 or 10 years from the people, so go back and play popular music from 5 or 10 years previous to the people you are DJing for, okay? And you're thinking, how do I do that? Just go to Google and Google really popular songs from that year, right? And you'll find some hits. Now there's generally, like again, if you're gonna do weddings, there's some just general kind of hits that everybody just knows, okay? And you can just go and Google wedding playlist and you're gonna find loads of stuff like that. But just something to bear in mind before you go and DJ an event. What is the general age group of people who are going to be there, and what would a throwback be to those people, okay? Bear that in mind, get some really cool throwback playlists in place, have a general throwback playlist and more specific ones. Like for example, if you had a hip hop crowd, you can play some throwback kind of hip hop music in there. You guys are going to know this because this is going to be your genre, whatever genre that is. You guys know what a throwback is. Definitely something to bear in mind to mix it up and keep people on their toes. Okay guys, I'm going to throw one last tip in there because it would be criminal as a DJ for me not to mention this when it comes to choosing songs, which is mixing in key. In a nutshell, there are certain songs that will go together better than others based on whether they are in keys that will work well together. For example, if you've got one song that's a 4A and another song that's a 4A, they will go together perfectly because they are in the same key. So this is something else to bear in mind when you're choosing songs. If you're currently playing a song that's going down ridiculously well and you're scratching your head as to what song to play next, sort by key, sort by BPM, you will find another song that's in the same BPM, the same key. It's going to go perfectly and will most likely keep your audience happy because the two tracks will seemingly flow perfectly from one into the other. Although I will finish this video by saying that key is often one of the last things I think about when DJing live. It's not something that massively consumes me. I'm more interested in just playing belters, right? It doesn't matter what key it is as much. But if I'm doing like a technical set for YouTube where I know I'm going to be scrutinized, I will then play my music in key and make sure it all flows perfectly, okay? That's it. That's today's videos. I'm doing one a day, so if you want to see my daily videos for the next month, subscribe to this channel, check out these videos here, see you in the next vid.